Hi guys, welcome back to another video in the Pico 4 Ultra. Today I want to cover something I've been experimenting with for about a week now, and that's Winlator, which is a Windows emulation for Android. The very latest beta has come out quite literally yesterday. Number 10 includes mouse support and out of the box glibc, or I don't know how you say it, glibc, support within the main build of Winlator. So there's many different forks that you can have of Winlator, and I will cover those. But the main Winlator 10 just worked. Anyone watching for Quest 3, I'm sorry, I've tried everything all week, and Quest 3 just gives you this. So that's obviously not very good. Unusable. So the main issue there is within Winlator, there's different drivers you can use, and the main ones that actually work for most games, converting sort of DirectX calls to Vulkan, doesn't work in a Quest. So until that's fixed, I don't really want to waste too much time covering over the Quest problems and the games that work there. So for me, I'm now going to be demonstrating the latest beta just for ease of use case, but I will explain little caveats, and they do transfer into the different forks. So anyone that's interested in this, I'm going to cut straight to it. I'll move my Discord out of the way. You're going to need games, which is going to be essentially DRM-free games that you own. The easiest way to do this is on GOG. So any games that you have here, the older the better. Yes, Crysis does work. I'll get to that in a second. You can get an offline installer from here. So if you just view the downloads, it will offer you an offline installer in usually in parts. You can do this all from in headset on the Pico. As long as you download a sort of RAR file or a zip file extractor, you can do all of this and move it all into the right directories within headset. So while we can use a PC, you can just do it all in headset. For PC's sake, if you are going to extract the games onto the PC and then transferring into the headset, everything needs to be in the download folder. So all of these games are pre-installed on PC, and then I just copy the folder of the game install to the headset in the download folder. That is where Winlator will work from. So without going too much into the boring side of it, let's get straight into Winlator. So in the Pico at least, this opens in portrait, and there's no way to get a landscape image to boot up straight away. So what you would normally see is your container that you just need to set up. You can just go next. I will leave links in the description and text in the description of my Winlator settings and for the various games that I'm doing. But to solve this annoying issue in the Pico at least, if you go into input controls, select any of the profiles here and just do control editor, it will then force it into a landscape, and you just click B on the controller to go back, and then you have your landscape image here. Because what will happen is when you start a container without doing that, it will then just give you a small window, which is quite annoying. If you exit the container and then go back in, it will be normal, but this is just a nice easy way to speed it up. This happens on most of the Winlator forks. So we've got a container, which is essentially telling the Android side of it what we're going to use. So in this case, I'm sticking to a low screen resolution of 960 by 544, which is 16 by 9 aspect ratio. You can mess around with this, but in all honesty, the way the drivers are in Android, it doesn't give you absolute max performance. And there's going to be loads of little tips I'm going to share with you to get this working. So 960 by 544. I'm sticking to turnip drivers. Clicking the little cog here. You need to set up your container and then go back in to change these. I'm setting this to the latest, which is included in the beta. Keep enable director engine enabled. Click OK. And then between dxvk and vkd3d, those are the two that I would recommend experiment with on your games. So both will perform quite well. And again, just select the latest one. So this is the main container setting that you can set up. And again, all of the other little tricks and tips I'll leave in here. So box 64 presets, performance does help. You can change all of the CPU stuff, but generally just installing this beta Winlator, just configuring the graphic drivers very quickly and changing your box 64 profile, you're pretty much good to go. So let's start a container up here. Now, the nice thing about this one is this version of Winlator has finally got mouse support. So if I very quickly plug in mouse and keyboard that I've got to the headset, what you're going to see happen is I can move the mouse around and it reacts perfectly within the window. So it contains itself within the window frame and doesn't bug out. So that's perfect. So what I need to do that for is, because all of my game installs are on the D drive, if I click the D drive here and see my games, the best way to manage these instead of launching into the full container like this is to go into whatever game folder you've got and right click, and this is why you need the mouse, right click and create a shortcut, which will then create a shortcut to the main Winlator window. So once you've done that for all of the games you've got, it's very easy to manage that way. You can see this is very, very basic, just basic start for file manager. Before you start anything, especially if you're messing around with this on a Quest, I would recommend using the Test Direct 3D option to make sure your graphics driver is working. If this is bugging out and flashing, it's not working. If it doesn't launch, it's not working. So there's no point trying to launch games if this test doesn't pass. So from here, because I'm recording, I'm losing a bit of performance. It's around 930, 950 right now with recording. That's normally up by 1200 or 1400 without recording. If I put this into immersive mode in the Pico, you can see that we've now tanked the performance down to 800 or so, just below 800. So there's two other options here that save performance on Pico. First one is going to be not using high display quality, which is a higher resolution pass-through, which we're now down to 590, 600 on the FPS. So avoid doing that. Set your home space performance preference in the normal performance tab of Pico settings. Set it to high multi-window performance, and do not use immersive pass-through. You can use it, but you're going to lose performance, and you need every little last bit of performance you can get for Winlator. What I would recommend is selecting a virtual environment that is not heavy. So ideally use the AI generated feature for the environment, which is just a 360 picture, that you get the most performance. Use the tips with the multi-window performance mode and keep the resolution down within the Winlator container. And again, don't try to record at the same time. So that's the way you can get absolute max performance out of this. Make that a bit bigger for you. You can see it's 900 or so here, but again, that should be about 1200 or 1400 on this version of Winlator with the latest drivers. So container wise, that's all done. I'm going to go back to the actual Winlator application, and I'm going to share how to get these input controls mapped as well before I start, and I will leave my own profile for the Xbox Bluetooth controller, the actual Xbox One version here without the gloss. This is Bluetooth. So pair this to your Pico first, go into your Winlator, and again you can import profiles. So from here, import a profile and navigate to the actual file for the ICP file that's normally saved within download Winlator profiles. That'll save you a bit of time. But if you're not doing that yourself, I'll just go back out of all of this. You see your controller connected down the bottom. You need to click into this. Click the button on your controller and it'll populate these. So up, down, left, right. Go here, go to gamepad. And then once it's on gamepad, go up to this menu here. You may find this constantly scrolls. This is an issue on pretty much all of the versions of Winlator. But if you've got your controller connected, use the buttons on the controller to then select it. Okay, so I'm not going to select anything there because I've already done it, but you can get the idea. If you need to manually do that, that's how you do that. Okay, right. We've done the control setup. You've hopefully got your container set up properly. You've got your shortcuts made. Now let's get into the fun part. So, what do I start with here? Depending on the age of the game and what it uses. So any DirectX 12 stuff not going to work. Any really, really old DirectX 9 stuff is going to be a bit of hit and miss on what driver you need to use. But essentially, if I start with the one everyone's really want to see here, if I start with Crysis, I'm going to go to just the settings. So you went 960 by 544. I'm using the turnip latest 25.0. I'm using VK D3D, which is, again, the latest one available to me, which is 213 within the Winlator. And that's pretty much everything I got changed. You can change the Box 64 preset to performance, but I find that the cutscenes will be a little bit jittery and a bit bugged out. That is entirely your call. If you want a little bit more FPS in game, you can change to performance, or stick with intermediate, which is the default. If you do change that, obviously, bear in mind it's going to affect the frame rate in game. So depending on what settings you want to use in game and what resolution you're using, this is going to affect it massively. So I'll leave it on intermediate for now, because I'm not going to try squeeze out every last bit of frame while I'm recording, because that's pointless. I'm changing the profile to the Xbox I've done, which means I can just use the controller straight away. And click OK. And we're going to simply just launch this container, which is now going to start up Crysis. Again, because I'm recording and it's going to be losing frame rate anyway, I'll put it into pass-through so you can see that I'm using a controller. I've got a mouse and keyboard connected. The annoying thing with this version of Winlator anyway is they have enabled mouse support finally, which makes a massive difference. However, it doesn't operate the keyboard correctly. All of the keys work, but escape does not work. So when you need escape to get into a menu, you're pretty stuck. So let's get past this bit here. Again, this is not going to be perfect with the recording. Ideally, I should do this with a capture card, but you get the idea. Okay, now we're in game. I'm going to use the mouse. Again, if you've got anything, annoying thing here, if I wake my controller up, if you've got controller laser pointers pointing at the screen, that messes things up a bit. So I'm just going to point those out of the way, get my mouse back, change my options. I'm going to go to system settings, go to graphics. I'm going to select full screen. Okay, so that fixes the bugginess of it. That's no problem. And let's do single player. We just load straight into the game here. And especially with Crysis, Crysis is obviously demanding, it's notoriously demanding. I don't know in what respects emulating Crysis is supposed to be demanding, but with everything as tuned as I possibly can, so no other applications open like Discord or any background stuff open, I'm getting about 30 frames a second on the high preset with the 1920 resolution by 544. So that seems like a low resolution, but in a headset like this, you got to think the actual pixel density is nothing like a screen. So even though the screen is like 100-inch, it's not actually putting that resolution over a 100-inch physical monitor. So you can get away with quite a low resolution and it still look good.
Prophet, I made it to the beach.
You can see this is quite literally playing Crysis. And what I can do to show you this isn't streaming, because people obviously don't really believe everything that I do. I'm going to turn off the Wi-Fi.
Studio checks out. You're back online.
So, bring that screen back
Still
up.
no word from Aztec. No man. Rendezvous with Jester and head to Aztec's location.
Oh, got a web
Check
browser,
your
but that's
objectives
fine.
displayed.
So, even though I'm recording, I've got a web browser, I've got Discord, I'm at 27 FPS, which is, again, considering task at hand, is quite playable. Now, what I'm actually going to do is just go into settings and show you I am at a high preset. So 960 544. Move this closer. So I've left this at medium. Let me go back and change all of that to high. And then I should be able to show you basically the result of everything being open in the background affecting the frame rate as well as the recording. I'll give this a second just to load itself up. I'm going to move this back a bit from me and I'm going to make the screen smaller. I'll do that so you can see it a bit better. So right now we're at 22 frames a second. I've got the web app open, I've got Discord open, let's close those. Not made a massive difference. Pass through. We're up to 25, 26. And with the Pico at least, if I moved it out of the way, you've got a brush icon which closes anything in the background, so it clears everything from RAM. So I'm just going to bam click this, close my menu, and then see what we're at. So we're now closer to 30 frames a second, so 28 frames a second. Move that closer. 32, 33 frames a second. I've got my stealth on, I need to get rid of that.
Maximum speed.
So yeah, we're 30 frames a second. Fully playable Crysis on high details.
Energy critical.
Which is awesome. But like I said, you are going to need to stretch every last bit of performance out of Winlator by using all of the tricks you can to get your games running, but if you really do want to play Windows games on your Pico, you can do it. Until the drivers work on Quest 3, I wouldn't even bother attempting this. I've been doing it all week and fighting every version of Winlator imaginable to be able to do this properly. So, let me see if I can go back to mouse and keyboard. Go there. Okay. So, this is the catch I've got, is with Winlator 10 beta, it won't work on the escape key, which is super annoying. So, in most games, if you need to get your menu, you're screwed. If you need to exit, what tends to happen anyway, if you go back all the way to the menus and do that, then it's going to crash anyway. So, another thing why I would suggest using Pico over Quest for this is when you close it like that, and you're going to be doing this a lot because again it's pushing pretty much everything that needs to push. Go to your Winlator, long hold the trigger, you can go view access, details, force stop, and you can clear the cache at the same time if you really want to. You can't force stop an application on Quest, so when it goes wrong you need to restart, and that's a massive pain in the ass. So again, whenever this does work for Quest, great, but be aware you're going to need at least an Android system settings side loaded, so you can then get your application list and force close the application that way, because you're going to be fighting it at all costs. So that's pretty much it. What game runs at what frame rate is going to vary entirely, depending on how demanding it is and how compatible the driver is with that particular title. So Crysis is playable. Lego Brick Tales demo, that's playable. The old stuff like Red Faction 2, absolutely no problem at all. Talos Principle, if you change this to Vulkan, it runs amazingly well. However, with the box profiles, if you put on performance to get more FPS, all of the game sound breaks. The narrator obviously breaks, it skips. So it's not particularly brilliant that way. You can sacrifice a few of the FPS and go with a box 64 preset of intermediate or so. Okay. So, again, you're going to need DRM-free games to do this. Install it on PC, drag them into the download folder, or do it from the in-headset. I wouldn't advise downloading and installing through Winlator. Do it for really small games like Red Faction 2 or Talos Principle, Crysis, anything massive like Witcher 3. Do not install through Winlator. It takes way too long. You'll be there for a good hour and a half trying to get it installed from inside the headset. Just install it on a PC or laptop. It doesn't actually need to run the game, and then transfer the files into the headset. So, Witcher 3 is playable. It's about 20 FPS or 25 FPS. But there's one big warning I need to give to this. If you are planning to use Witcher 3, turn the system volume of your headset way down so your speakers don't output any sound, because there's a huge bug with this that will blast sound at full blast, and it will damage your ears. It is so loud. So turn the volume down, get into the game, and then cycle just any volume control in the game. So like an output of headphones to surround sound, cycle it, it fixes the audio bug. But just be aware that is a massive catch to doing Witcher 3. There's nothing to solve that apart from remembering to do that and starting your game up without the sound, get into your gameplay, and then turn your sound up and hopefully not go deaf. So that's it. That's my project I've been messing around with for the past week or so. Pretty awesome. Bit annoying that you do have to do these odd little Winlator things just to get the application to behave, but considering we're doing Windows on Android, it's pretty sick. So, a few things I want to cover before I end the video. If you do want full mouse and keyboard support, you can use a different version of Winlator, which I would personally recommend after all my experimentation. The Coffin Colors mod, I think it is, Coffin Colors, which is the one here. I'll leave a link in the description. And again, with all the testing, I've found the best combo, which is basically using, again, all of this written down. It will be in the video description. So that's it. If you want to have some fun playing Windows stuff on Android, give these a go. Pretty awesome. Cheers, guys.